So this is this case study called case study sayings. Again, you can find it in the document in the Google Doc. It's simply the case study 1, frequencies and distances between Jesus' sayings. So what's the goal of this case study? I'm just interested whether my colleague Zdenka joined us already or not. No, I don't see her so far. Doesn't matter. So this is something, this is an analysis I was working on while preparing an article called Distant Reading of the Gospel of Thomas and the Gospel of John. So it is a methodological, theoretical, empirical article on using these tools for getting some insights which should somehow contribute to the debate concerning the differences and similarities between these two Gospels. There is a group of scholars who emphasize that the Gospel of John and Gospel of Thomas share a lot of topics and that their theology is somehow similar, while other scholars emphasize that there are substantial differences between these two texts and that the metaphors are used differently and so on. And our task was actually to decide what is more grounded in evidence. So we produced 3 or 4 different analyses of these texts. All of these analyses were done with English translation, but part of it were also done with Greek texts of the Gospels and with Coptic texts as well. And in one of these analyses, the output was very similar to what you have been able to see previously. It was this. Do you see the plot? Great. This is the plot comparing 5 Gospels, not 5 Gospels actually, but Jesus' sayings in these 5 Gospels. That means that to produce this analysis and this plot, we firstly have to go through the English, Greek, and Coptic texts of the 5 Gospels, of the canonical Gospels and the Gospel of Thomas. And for each of these texts, extract only words ascribed to Jesus. Why? Because to make the text comparable. Because while Gospel of Thomas consists only of almost only of Jesus' sayings, the synoptical Gospels include a lot of narratives and so on and so on. And so it would be slightly more uncomparable. So to make the texts more comparable, we focus only on the direct speech of Jesus in all of these texts. And in case of synoptical Gospels, synoptical Gospel of canonical Gospels, we were able to do the analysis both in Greek and English. If you know Greek, you can see that there are some differences between the most common words in the Greek original and the English translation, but you can also see that there is quite substantial overlap. That means that the algorithm, the similarities versus differences are there, regardless of the particular language. For instance, you see that in the Gospel of Matthew and Gospel of Mark, the term anthropos or man is definitely the most common term for both of them. While in the case of the Gospel of John, the most common term is the term father, pater in Greek. So this analysis is somehow able to capture the differences and similarities between the vocabulary these documents use, or Jesus in these documents is using. The algorithm behind this concerning the size of the bar plots is the same as you were able to see in your own analysis you have seen, we have done previously. But here is also the color. And the color is based on something different. The color here is based on comparing the frequency of the term within the gospel with frequency of the term across all 5 gospels, or in the given language. Is it clear that one gospel, for instance, can consist, or saying in one gospel can consist of 1,000 words, and 10 words, 10 times it contains the term man or anthropos. But you have to consider how much often is this same term used in the other texts as well. So you can get this information just by dividing the first number by the number in the rest of the text for all the texts together. This was impossible to do this with the Coptic version because we haven't analyzed Coptic translations of the Gospels. It would be too complicated, and we do not work with Coptic at all. So it was too hard for us even to produce this for the Gospel of Thomas. But we were able to see, okay, there are some similarities between John and Tom because we were mainly interested in these columns between these 2 subplots. There are some similarities, but there is a lot of differences. But these differences are on the level of vocabulary and not so much on the level, and we cannot judge on this basis whether there is also a difference on the level of meaning of the words. So this is something what we did in another analysis, and perhaps we will have time to look at this as well. Once you have this type of data, the data in this form, you can do something what is called measuring distances between documents. Because you can produce a vectorization of the documents and compare the usage of terms across all these texts and produce something like this. This plot is actually drawing on the previous one or on the data presented in the previous one, and it actually compare the similarities between the vocabulary used in this 5 gospels, and on the basis it analyze their similarity and project this similarity versus dissimilarity into a 2-dimensional space. And so how to interpret this result? This result say that in the English version of the Gospel translation, which was a revised standard version in the case of the canonical Gospels, you can see that the synoptic Gospels are really close to each other. That means that they share a lot of the same vocabulary. But you see that the Gospel of John is here and quite distant from them, quite far from them, and the same is about the Gospel of Thomas. And you can also see that it seems that the Gospel of Thomas and Gospel of John are quite far from each other. That's the important information we were interested in here, to see whether actually the Gospel of Thomas is somehow close to the Gospel of John. And we were not able to rerun this analysis with the Greek version. The Greek version is here, on the right side, because we do not have the Gospel of Thomas fully in Greek. So we compare just the canonical Gospels. And here we see that in the case of the 4 canonical Gospels, the pattern you retrieve by analyzing the Greek text is the same as you obtain while analyzing the with English version. So here is a question. This vectorization works with word frequencies or also with collocation or a group of words. This vectorization works with, actually, the vector here is built on the whole vocabulary of all words within the document. So it does not work with collocations or co-occurrences at all. It's just, yeah. So that's what makes the analysis very limited. But the next one we did, did exactly this, that it focused on analyzing collocations or co-occurrences of words and comparing the Gospels according to this measurement. One last thing I want to show you on this case study is actually this. Perhaps I can run it from the beginning. What you can meet quite often once reading about computational text analysis is this TF-IDF /IDF, yeah, -IDF. This means term frequency multiplied by inverse document frequency. It is an algorithm for calculating importance of a word within a document, which takes into account the usage of the term in the rest of the corpus, in the rest of the documents in the corpus. Here is the equation, how it works, and here it's one of its implementation into Python. So how it works exactly? Document frequency. DF. Document frequency is, so you have a word and you are interested, you know its term frequency in a particular gospel. You make run it, just you have the document and make count the document, and you figure out that, okay, the term woman is used in the Gospel of John 10 times. The Gospel of John consists of 1,000 words. So there is this ratio is the term frequency within the Gospel, but you are interested whether this term also used in the rest of the documents within the corpus. So you first have to calculate what is called document frequency. Document frequency. So if in the case that the term is contained just within the Gospel of John, like woman would be just in the Gospel of John, in that case you will return the document frequency of the value equal to 1. But here you are actually interested in the inverse document frequency. That means that you define want to have the df1 inverse df. The basic inverse df is 5 because you have 5 documents, and if in one document you have the term you are interested in. And what's additionally, what is done normally with this is that it is actually logarithmized here. So if a term appears, if this one particular term you identify in the Gospel of John appears only and only in the Gospel of John, it has DF 1, basic EDF 5 divided by 1, what is 5, but normalized by a logarithm 1.6, basically. In the case that the term appears in 3 documents, so it's not that it is not so much significant for the document under scrutiny. Yeah, I have to put it here this way. I define n docs. We have 5 gospels, so n of docs is 5. You see that the value is much lower. In the case that here is 5, the term is appearing in all documents, it returns 0. So once you have this and multiply it by the term frequency of the term, you can obtain quite interesting information about actually how much the particular term within the gospel is specific for the document itself in comparison to how it is common to the rest of the corpus. And this is a very standardized way of doing that. But in my opinion, it does not work so well once you have only 5 documents. It does not, because if you have a corpus of 100 documents, definitely the differences will be much higher, right? Once you have a term and it appears in 90 documents, it has almost no value. Why, if you have something which appears in 2 documents, it's significantly higher. So therefore, in this plot, I do not use TF-IDF, even if I could, and I was using it somewhere else. I instead decided to implement here a different measurement. But you can imagine that this is something very similar to that. So you can make a comparison of just this. Yeah, here I produce this for this measurement for the all text. Here you see the most frequent term in the gospel. This is Gospel of Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, Tom. Here is its relative term frequency, the term frequency. And yeah, it's stupid. Why is it not here? No, here is the number involved. That's the original one function, this function. Here you see the my measurement comparing the term frequency within the gospel with term frequency across the 5 gospels. And actually the last number is this TF-IDF. That means that the term man appears in all 5 gospels. Therefore, it has very low value in this term, in this context. And here you can use these values to sort the documents. Here is the 10 most frequent words in the terms in terms of term frequency, from the most common one to the less common one on the 10th position. Here you see that all of these terms are very common, so they have this value, they equal to 0 here in TF-IDF. And here is my measurement, which enables some differentiation. But you can also make this, and to use my algorithm to choose the term which has highest term frequency within the gospel with compared to term frequency within the whole corpus. And you can obtain even different values once you sort the terms from the most, from the term with highest TF-IDF. Here we are in the case of the Gospel of Matthew, and you see that in terms of TF-IDF, the most specific are these English terms for it. In terms of TF-IDF, in my in the another algorithms, it's this. So once you will be interested in doing this on your own, you can return to this case study. It should be completely open. It relies on the data sets are here important from an open data storage. So you should be able to run it on your own. There is also some documentation, and yeah. So that's it. The advantage of this is that it is really straightforward, also very straightforward in terms of how to interpret results of this analysis. But the biggest disadvantage is that actually it completely ignores the order of words in the document. It does not say anything about the meaning of the words. It just say something about the quantity, but does not say anything about how they are located in context of what words and so on and so on. For this, but this is actually something what is probably nowadays the biggest part of, or the most interesting part of computational text analysis is actually focusing on that. And in a moment, I hope that we will return to exactly to this, to suggest some important things about how to think about this in terms of quantitative text analysis, and we will introduce terms like distributional semantics and word embeddings, and hopefully we will also get to illustration of some simple models of how this works.